So, um, my name is Jenna Villani. I'm the Executive Director of Alumni Relations here at William Paterson University, and we're really glad to have you join us tonight for the panel discussion on tips and tools for virtual learning. On behalf of our office, it's my pleasure again to have you join us. And I also just want to acknowledge Rodney Coffin, also on the Alumni Relations team, who's here with us tonight. So everyone give a virtual hello to Rodney. Just want to share, while we're not able to come together in person at this time, we're really pleased to provide opportunities like this and other ways for you to stay connected to William Paterson and your alumni community in online and virtual formats. And so I encourage you to take advantage of the many virtual programs and activities that we're offering, such as the virtual book club, social events, lifelong learning opportunities, career development programs, webinars, and more. Just before we get started, I just want to share some details on how everything's going to work tonight. So again, if you could kindly keep your microphones muted and videos off throughout the evening, we'd appreciate that. We do welcome questions. We want this to be interactive, so you can feel free to type any questions you have into the chat box, and we'll take questions throughout tonight's panel discussion. So again, we encourage you to enter your questions, and we'll do our best to address them. We are recording tonight's panel, so it will be available on demand after the session on our YouTube channel. And just one other quick helpful hint, you should be seeing like a PowerPoint presentation on your screen and little images of the presenters down the right-hand side. If the presenter screen gets in your way, just know that you can move that around, so or minimize it if it's blocking any of the presentation. I also want to acknowledge a special guest that we have with us tonight, Amy Ginsberg, who is Dean of the College of Education. So again, everyone, give a friendly hello to Amy. And Amy, if you just want to say
hi, everyone,
hi.
welcome.
Thanks, Amy, for being with us. So let's get started. So this session is designed to help parents, family members, support systems, and educators navigate the current educational landscape. Each panelist will share best practices, strategies, resources, and tools that will help families support their children's remote learning, as well as help educators with teaching in a virtual environment. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers. First, we have with us Neil Grimes. He is an education and curriculum materials librarian at William Paterson University. He holds an MLS from Clarion University and an MS in education with a focus on instructional technology from Wilkes University. He spent 13 years working in public education in an urban Pennsylvania school district. His work centers on education research and library instruction, supporting the faculty and students in the College of Education. He has conducted library outreach by providing library instruction and professional development to the Paterson School District and other PK through 12 schools in the Northern New Jersey region. His research interests includes male mentorship in PK through 12 schools, Real Men Read, National History Day, project-based learning, virtual learning tools and resources, information literacy, instruction and skills, and PK through 12 tutoring. We also have with us Heejung An, who is a professor of educational technology and STEAM education, and is also the director of the M.Ed in Curriculum and Learning program at the Department of Educational Leadership and Professional Studies here at William Paterson. She received an EDD from Teachers College, Columbia University, and Dr. An was the director of the Fulbright Hays Group's Project Abroad program funded by the U.S. Department of Education, and currently serves as the director of the Arts Integration Program funded by the Geraldine R. Dodge Foundation. Her research centers on the intersection of educational technologies, pedagogies, the arts, diversity, and online learning for the K-12 sector. And David Fuentes is an associate professor of elementary and early childhood education in the Department of Teacher Education, pre-K through 12 at William Paterson University. He teaches courses aimed at preparing pre-service and in-service teachers to teach in urban school classrooms. His courses focus on differentiated instruction, multicultural education, teaching with technology, and the teaching profession in diverse school settings. His current research focus is on using sociocultural perspectives to explore issues of equity across various school settings. So we thank our panelists so much for sharing their expertise with us tonight. Before I go ahead and turn it over to Neil, we are going to try a quick poll. We'll see how this works. Okay, so everyone should be seeing a question. And we just want to poll the group to see why you're attending tonight, just so our panelists have a sense of who's with us and why you've joined us tonight. Okay, and panelists, can you see these responses?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll give it one more minute in case anyone wants to enter in their response. Okay, so a mix. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll. And Neil, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, perfect. I'm just going to close out of the poll. Okay, thank you, everyone. The topic today are tips, strategies, resources, and tools for parents, educators to assist with teaching and learning in the virtual environment. Oops. Starting with tips for parents. The 4 main tips I could share for any parents navigating this virtual learning world is you want to, number one, have a structured learning environment in your household. Number two, you want to provide daily technology support to your students learning at home in any way that you can. The typical platform is Google Classroom. So a lot of the tools you'll have to familiarize yourself would be Google related. Number three is academic support. So following up on the instruction that your children received in the virtual learning world, asking them follow-up questions such as, what they didn't understand in classes throughout the day, homework help, things like that. And I would say most importantly is that emotional support. You have to be very supportive of your children that are learning at home in a different kind of learning environment than they're used to. Prior to the pandemic, everyone was attending school and had assigned seats in a classroom setting. And school was much more social in nature. Now that a lot of students are learning virtually, it brings a whole nother dynamic to the situation. So getting to the structured learning environment, I would recommend having a structured or organized student workstation, whether that's at a computer desk or the kitchen table. Selecting an area where Wi-Fi is strong in your home, or an area where students could plug an Ethernet cord or cable into their device. Helping students to organize and follow a daily schedule is of utmost importance. A structured schedule will help students to focus more on their classes and on the learning that is being done virtually. Going forward with that structured learning environment, I would recommend helping your children to create folders on Google Drive for each subject that they have. That will help them to stay organized. Have students write the date and subject if they're using Google Docs before they start taking notes in a notebook or in Google Docs. Have students take the initiative in contacting their teachers when they need assistance. So for students to contact their teachers, they're going to need to know how to write an email message. A lot of students, the way that they communicate is in short text messages. So writing an email is an art and a skill form. So that's something that you can kind of go over with those students that need to communicate with their teachers and let their teachers know maybe what they're not understanding. Stress relief, please. I would encourage every parent in our room today to encourage your children to take that time to exercise, get up out of the chair they're sitting in, in between classes, walk around the room, do jumping jacks, go outside if they have a half-hour break, go for a walk around the block. Just build in some time throughout the day for physical activity and that exercise to help students to not feel as pressured from learning in this whole virtual environment. Technology support. I have a lot of resources on a LibGuide that I'm going to share with you after I finish my portion of the presentation. And on that LibGuide, you're going to see a lot of links relating to how to use Google Classroom, some videos on Google Classroom, also some support links and videos on Zoom. So I think those might definitely come in handy for those of us not really familiar with those two video learning platforms. I highly recommend that parents check up on the assignments that are being posted in Google Classroom or that are even sent to the student's email. Maybe the students at home, learning at home, need help in submitting their work or answering some questions. So this might be a place for parents to step in and assist students learning virtually. I did put a note here. I think this is important. Whenever I'm struggling with technology or whenever I have problems or issues that I need to address, I keep either a paper notebook or a post-it tabs that I just jot down the questions or concerns that I need to have addressed or follow up on. So that's what I would recommend, maybe keeping a paper notebook where students can kind of jot down maybe some technology questions or issues they're having. In terms of academic support, make sure to check up on students, the students learning at home, your children, and ask them what they are learning about in each one of their classes daily. That's a good recommended practice. Have students maybe use a different paper notebook and write down questions or concerns that they might have or struggles they might have in each one of their subject classes. Make sure to check that notebook on a daily basis. Have students email their teachers the specific questions they might have or the concerns they have in learning the material, the curriculum that they're learning virtually. Make sure you show them how to write that email. So these are some tips, I think, for parents and teachers. I think maybe this might get lost in the shuffle since everyone's learning virtually and teaching virtually. But I think it's important to show, students and, our kids, the children learning at home, that sense of emotional support. Be there to listen to them, listen to their struggles, their concerns. Um, Ask them how their classes are going. Ask them what they enjoy learning about the most during their virtual school day. Let them know you are there to help in any way you can. Reach out to the teacher for assistance and be an advocate for your child or for your students. Just be as supportive as you can. These are some specific strategies that I came up with, I think, that would be great for teachers to follow in adapting instruction for the virtual environment. Creating authentic and relevant course material. Material that will relate to students' lives, that they'll be enthusiastic to be engaged in, getting students involved in that whole learning process. I recommend teaching with the variety of multimedia resources whenever possible. So maybe you find a great interactive website or a great video on YouTube that explains a concept or introduces a topic. Try to engage your audience, your students, as best you can. Try to get them enthusiastic about this whole virtual learning process. Have students create content, be creators of content, whether it's individually or in groups. Learning should really be engaging. I'm a big fan of project-based learning activities and having students work in groups so that they can support each other's learning. So, keep that in mind as you develop your lesson plans. Have students reflect on what they learned either by sharing in a class setting virtually or keeping an individual learning log. I was a big fan when I was teaching in the classroom of students writing down, every day underneath their notes or at the top of their notes, some questions or concerns maybe they had in the content that was being taught. Explain the purpose behind why students are learning what they are learning when they are learning it. So again, just creating that authentic course material that really relates to students' lives and the importance of the content you're teaching. Now is the fun part. So this is the last slide of my portion of my presentation. After I close out of the PowerPoint, I am going to take you to that specific LibGuide that I have listed. I have been working on this LibGuide. The shortcut is Online Resources for Teaching and Learning. So I've been working on this LibGuide since May. Several faculty members in the College of Education have been sending me emails of just resources that would be really helpful for learning in this whole virtual learning environment. So I'm going to share with you my up-to-date LibGuide, and I'm going to talk about a few of those resources. Also on that LibGuide, I do have a specific tab that includes digital resources that will help educators and parents learn more about Google Classroom and Zoom resources. So the remainder of my time will be spent discussing these resources on this specific LibGuide. And this LibGuide will be added to the alumni LibGuide, which is hosted by one of my colleagues, Gary Marks. And I do have that link provided there. So if anyone has any questions after tonight and you want to follow up with me or ask any kind of questions or ask for recommendations on resources, my email is listed there. It's my last name and my first initial at wpunj.edu. Let me now bounce out of the PowerPoint, and I want to go show you this creation of mine. So this is it. This is what I've been working on. It's two tabs, the home tab, and the second tab is resources for Google Classroom and Zoom. And on this home tab, you're going to see some general resources for online teaching and learning, 100 plus activities for motivating and retaining learners online. Great resource. I have a document shared by teachers in Hawaii that lists a lot of different professional development resources for teachers and helping them to make their content, online content, more engaging. Educational shows on Netflix, maybe that's something that parents can look at. Free teaching resources for learning at home, K through 5. The difference between emergency remote teaching, which a lot of us had to do when the pandemic first hit in March, and online learning. So this article explains the differences between the two. That kind of gave me a nice overview of what kind of resources I really should focus on in terms of moving this LibGuide forward. There are other subject categories: arts, visual and performing. I have digital literacy and computer science, best digital literacy websites, 30 plus great resources and tools, health and science, mental health activities for K-12 teachers and students, from breathing exercises, yoga, to some other activities that will kind of exercise and distract your mind. Literacy resources, specifically even a picture book on the COVID-19 pandemic that would be applicable for children. History and social science, web resources, lots listed there. Here's specific online resources for parents, some home activities you could do with your students at home. Virtual field trip activities, links are provided there. Some great resources. I also have math and technology, that subject area address, some cool math games to help students review, some great math class resources. So things to kind of keep in mind. This is pretty cool. I checked this out in the spring. Walt Disney Imagineering partners with Khan Academy to bring Imagineering in a box. So I'd recommend checking out that if you're a fan of Walt Disney or anything Disney. Let me briefly show you this, and then I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dave Fuentes. So these are a list of some of the resources that I do have listed in terms of supporting Google Classroom and Zoom. I thought this would be helpful for both teachers and parents. And I included Google Classroom and Zoom because I feel like these are the two most commonly used resources when it comes to classroom instruction. So some of these are websites and some of them are videos. They are listed here. Very, very helpful. I've found these resources to be very helpful. And I'm pretty sure a lot of the teachers in the room that are using Google Classroom might find some of these resources to be extremely helpful as well. This is a nice segue into what David's going to talk about. He's going to address a lot of features of Google Classroom, as well as some other very, very helpful and useful technology tools. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over the presentation to my colleague, David Fuentes. I'm going to stop sharing.
Thanks, Neil. And while we're making that transition, Neil, we did have one quick question come in. Someone's asking if you would please share the links to those resources in the chat. I know we're going to share them afterwards via email, but if it's possible to share them in the chat, that would be great.
Oh, absolutely. Let me do that right now. Let me see. Well, I'll do it after David.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you as well to Jenna. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak with you all. Can you see my screen? Is there a thumbs up from someone? Neil, are you able to see the screen? Is that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Welcome everyone. I'm David Fuentes, and as Neil suggested, I'm going to feature my presentation on virtual classrooms, specifically classrooms that feature various components of Google Classrooms. And in this case, what I'm going to be providing to you today are a series of examples and also a resource that I'd like to leave with you. And so I'll be posting my slides in the chat. And while we won't be going over all of them, the ones that we don't go over will really help you if you're interested in creating your own Google Classroom. And so for those of you who might not be familiar, Bitmoji is an emoji. It's an avatar of a teacher. It is popular now as teachers find ourselves in remote teaching situations, both synchronous, where we teach at the same time, and asynchronous, where we're planning instruction when students are not there. And so the Bitmoji is a platform that allows us to create a caricature of ourselves that might make learning a little bit more familiar for students who are at home without our presence. And the process that I used to collect these slides, I didn't make them all. Some of them come from teachers that I associate with locally, was through Google Slides, and they represent different examples of Google Classrooms. So we're going to explore some of those examples. And the first one is going to be very specific to literacy. This is an example that could be used for grade kindergarten through 1. The content that we'll be looking at are typically referred to as word families. This is a Bitmoji of a teacher who teaches locally here in North Jersey, who prepared this classroom to engage her kindergarten and first grade students in various forms of often referred to as CVS words, so consonant, vowel, consonant, CVC words. This might be helpful for grouping and phonics. So I'd just like to share with you a couple of examples of how this might work, and we'll go from there.
Make a word with n to match the picture. 10,
I'm dragging the letter.
N. 10. Pen.
I'm pressing on the letter. Now I'm dragging.
N. Pen. Hen.
So what you can see here is an example of how we would prepare a virtual classroom. In this case, this teacher prepared this classroom for students who are not studying at the same time she was teaching. So it's really an example of asynchronous teaching instruction. And this was created at the beginning of the pandemic in early March to support the literacy instruction for where she was leaving off as the students, left the classroom. This is another example of a virtual classroom using Google Slides. And this is a reading room. This is dedicated to the author Mo Willems. Many of you might be familiar with several of his works. And what's really interesting about these are all created, hyperlinked together. So what's interesting about this page is that it really is, it's where like 50 hyperlinks are residing. And now a student is able to self-guide and use these books as a reading room. This is sort of reflective of what a physical classroom offers us. We have typically a reading corner in a primary classroom. And so this structure, this setup, is a reflection of the physical space when the physical space is not possible. Again, all of these are hyperlinked. So students could explore this kind of room at their own pace, a self-guided pace. So it allows for a tremendous level of differentiation. And they would be able to also explore their own area of interest. And when they do so, they encounter read alouds.
Waiting is not easy, by Mo Willems. Gerald, I have a surprise for you. Yay! What is...
In this case, this particular read aloud is performed by a student. And so there's some benefits from peer-to-peer learning that we see here. And again, what's interesting to me is how reflective of a physical space that children are accustomed to, a virtual space can become with some expertise and some planning. And so this is really a reflective reading room that you might see in a physical space, but obviously not in a physical space, in a virtual space. Everything you see here was put in, from the stuffed animals to the letters to the light bulbs. A teacher is making decisions about how to position these books in a way that's most affectively positive for their students. We have another reading room here, except this one is dedicated to a different purpose. Rather than students encountering read alouds, this is, first of all, it's texts that are specific to higher elementary grades, possibly even lower middle school grades. But this kind of reading room is not a place where a student would go to either read along or participate in a read aloud. This is a space that was designed specifically to generate interest and motivate students for different books. And so rather than these books linking to videos of read alouds, these books link to synopses, summaries of the text. And so this is where a student would go to possibly think about which book they want to read next, or to possibly gain an interest in, surveying what kinds of texts are out there. This is also very strategically positioned by the teacher. A lot of pedagogical decisions that were made here are made to help students encounter a text that they might otherwise not be interested in. And so they span grade levels of, grade 5 to really 8 or 9, and in some cases a little bit below and a little bit above. So I'm sharing this with you primarily as examples, noticing in the poll that many of you are teachers. I'm sure that you're interested in thinking about how to create these spaces. I just want to suggest that I have several slides dedicated at the end of this presentation that will allow you to self-guided walk through the process of how to create a Bitmoji, how to create a Google Classroom, and different things to consider. The primary goal for my time with you today is to show you some of the things that are possible and to really just begin to have a dialogue about ways to close the gap between the differences between virtual and physical spaces, which Google Classrooms does offer us some potential avenues to do that. So these texts are a little bit different. They're building interest, they're book picking, but another example of a reading room, this also comes from a local teacher who used this during the spring and also during the fall as well. Here we have another virtual reading room. This one is definitely blending different skills. These are actual books. So this slide that that we're giving to you actually has all of these books built into them. So this is the content. So if you're among the people who said that they're interested in sharing some of these resources with actual students, this might be a slide that is of particular interest to you. And so this allows students to read, but in that different setting. And this comes from a teacher that I work closely with who teaches in rural central Pennsylvania. And this is a virtual classroom that she created for her students. She's a reading specialist in the Harrisburg area. We're getting into some more interactive opportunities for young learners to participate. These are foundational, obviously, phonics that and word letter combinations that students are going to be able to practice. So this is a phonics room. We have short vowels that are represented. Each one of these things is, again, interactive. So it resembles what a word wall would look like, but unlike a word wall that would just say A is for apple, when a student clicks on this, what they're going to access are short vowels. So now you can practice, phonemes and different things like that. And again, self-guided.
Let's practice our sounds.
A apple a.
A apple a.
E-ed e.
E-ed e.
So when we teach short and long vowels, we do so by grouping them. And we believe that that's a scaffold to help students gain these kind of effective literacy skills. And so this was designed to support teachers, again, having that same sort of dynamic in-person, face-to-face kind of interaction without that setting. So again, the goal here for all of these examples and for all of these teachers was to replicate what was missing, which was face-to-face interaction, students being in school. And so these virtual classrooms begin to sort of explore what closing that gap might look like. So we have some math examples. I think that the math manipulatives are well placed. We have whiteboard use. Students can literally start drawing. We have various uses for something like this. This could be considered an add-on. You might use this in conjunction with a Zoom session when you're doing breakout rooms so that students could combine some of their thoughts. These can be very helpful. We have an abacus. We have different ways that students might participate in counting. So these are just among the different examples of math manipulatives that can be created and embedded in these virtual classrooms, in these Google Slides. We can do counting. We can do grouping. We can do sorting. We can do lots of different things that are pre-programmed for us. This is similar to like a Promethean board. When you use the software, it's sort of like plug and chug. You would just select it and now it's in your room. And this is the Bitmoji of the teacher who designed the first literacy room. And so you can see that continuity is there. Rather than encountering a text-based room, this room was designed to reflect the kindergarten primary classroom that this teacher had created. I imagine that some of these things may have been in their classroom in the physical space. And so the design of this virtual environment is one that reflects the physical space. Another example of math lesson, this is specific to math texts. Some of you might recognize Go Math is one of the math curricula that's used frequently in North Jersey. Singapore Math, Everyday Math are also frequently used. So this page shares some of the texts that teachers might use to explore math with young students, and just an example of what can be done. This is one of my favorite rooms, not because the teacher embedded a picture of her cat, although the cat is cute and useful. It's just really reflective for me of what a physical space would look like and how it would be used. And so I really like to think of this as just another example of how to create these reflective virtual spaces that reflect the physical space. These are all math manipulatives. When you find something in Google Slides, it's coded so that you can cut and paste it and move it to another Google slide. So the reason I'm sharing all of these resources with you is because they will aid you in the process if you're interested in being able to create your own rooms. And for those of you who are also interested, I will be sharing this link with you, and I highly encourage you to share this link directly with students who fit the grade level profile. I mean, it's very useful. So when we think about science, we have implanted a number of resources here. Some of these links don't work fully well. I was testing them just before we went on, and some of them are broken. But this is an example of a science room dedicated to the notion of plants and parts of the plants. We have different resources. We can make a page all about wind, and we can use, again, our classroom space to use it, and we can put in some different instruments, and students can explore this on their own. And anything that lights up with the hand is hyperlinked, and that's something that's interactive for students. This is one of my personal favorite pages. This is dedicated to history, women's history in particular. And these are actual texts and actual stories about real women that have changed the world. This is just another opportunity for us to explore different ways to structure our content, different ways to think about the pedagogical decisions we can make. Very similar to the way that it would be used in a classroom. We can include texts that we want students to read, stories that we want students to read. This is a book that I bought for my daughter, and we thought it was good, and so we included it as an example. These are books that I've used with children in third grade and in first grade and second grade. So they're there to be used, and they're there also to serve as examples of different ways that they can be used. So this might allow you to have a theme. A really nice theme might be to change the world. I know it sounds lofty, but kids are capable of the darndest things. And in a second grade classroom, it's in my opinion the right time to begin tackling some of the big problems that exist out there. So what might it mean to change the world in a second grade classroom is up to you as the teacher to decide, but these are some possible examples. All right, so with the last couple minutes that I have remaining, I just want to point to you what I'm going to be leaving you with. These kinds of virtual classrooms can be used in a variety of ways. You can use them entirely in remote settings. You can use them in person in centers, and they can be used to support hybrid instruction for those teachers that many of us have had to do hybrid instruction where we have a group of face-to-face and a group at home. This is one way that really dynamic concept can be met. They can be used for whole class instruction, small group instruction, individual instruction. They have tremendous benefits because they, that resource Neil shared about emergency versus more planned, sustained remote learning, that comes to mind when thinking about the benefit for something like this. If it were an emergency setting, this really does reflect the classroom dynamic that kids have already developed a sense of, and I think would scaffold remote learning more, because children will be familiar with the appearance of their teacher and some of the routines and procedures that have already been well established. There are several challenges to something like this. The primary one is that it's planning heavy. So what I leave you with now is instructions in the remaining slides if you are interested in how to create these things on your own. So the first thing would be to download the app called Bitmoji and to begin designing an avatar of you. I would begin introducing this avatar while students are in my classroom face-to-face in preparation for a remote situation, so that the shift, the learning curve wouldn't be so severe. And then the instructions are fully detailed with the embedded links of how you would get this done for yourself if you were interested. So I'll stop sharing my screen, but what I am going to do now is just turn your attention to the chat. I'm going to post the link to these slides, which will have obviously my contact information. If anything comes up, please, by all means, do contact me. I'd be very interested in supporting your use in your classroom or working with your child. But also you'll be able to follow those remaining slides in the pursuit of developing your own virtual classroom. So without further ado, I turn it over to my esteemed colleague, Dr. Heejung An, and I thank you very much for your time this evening. Please reach out if you feel the need.
Yeah, I cannot share a desktop. I tried to do that again, but I cannot. And now it's work. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. How are you? All right. So my presentation pertains to digital tool for arts and art integrations and also science. But before I share the specific tool, I just want to share my own tip. When you create your own classroom, a virtual classroom, please consider things like this. I want you to first develop a way to distribute instructions, activity, and assignments, right? 3 things. How do you want to actually distribute these 3 things? And then after that, you have to determine your teaching process that works for you, okay? So there's no one way, so you have to find a way that you feel most comfortable with. And then after that, create a schedule and stick to that. Consistency is key here. I mean, many of you are here parents at the same time as teacher. I'm also mom at the same time. I'm also educator and faculty member here. So, make sure that you're really consistently teaching for instance, like a video-based lesson on Wednesday, and then make sure that you stick to that kind of schedule throughout the semester. You also want to create your time for office hours to meet your students in a small groups or individually. So these 4 things are kind of my own tips when you teach online. And then before I do anything else, I want to share some basic terminology. Dr. Fuentes just mentioned about the asynchronous and synchronous. We use these 2 terms a lot nowadays, right? So I don't want to repeat this, but I want to actually share about the definition of arts integration because my topic pertains to art and art integrations. How many of you here, let me actually know this term, by the way? I want to hear from you. Have you ever heard of this term, arts integrations?
No.
No. Okay, good. That's what I'm asking. I just want to know. All right. So it's very similar to technology integrations. When it comes to art integration, it is very important to second portion here. Let me actually highlight that. Here, non-arts and arts content, right, is taught, and you have to assess both equitably in order to deepen our students' understanding of both. Remember that you have to teach both. At the same time, you have to assess both. Otherwise, it's gonna become like this. Do you see that arts enhancement, right? Arts are just like icing on a cupcake. So once you take this off, it doesn't really affect the cake. However, when you see art integrations, arts are like a jelly in the jelly roll. So you cannot take out jelly, without affecting cake as a whole. So what that means is that let's say you have art curriculum, right? Unless you're art teacher, probably you're not going to teach this. And many of you, I assume, non-art curriculum teacher here. Any art teacher here? No? So, we want to integrate arts again, right? In order to enhance students' learning of science, for example. Okay, at the same time, we want to teach art. Okay, here, I'm sure you look at this almost every day, right? Our core curriculum standard. So make sure you assess both. Let's say if I incorporate art into my science class, right? When you create a rubric, you have to have elements for that arts so that you can really assess arts. So having said that, why I'm saying this? I serve as DAS program grant director. So this grant allows me to work with the 4 schools in Paterson School District. Dr. Hani, this is a new school, number 9, number 21, and Don Bosco School. So what happened is that spring, as you know, suddenly schools are closed. So we wanted to find a way to reach out our students' populations, if we want to help them through this grant. So we create something called Learning Arts at Home. So let me actually click on this link. Sure, I just hear something from my. Can you see this block? Can you give me a sign, please? Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So if you look at here, for example, right? She's an artist, Triada Samaras.
Hello. This fall that will go on the blog. So we're very excited to have languages other than English. So let me begin with this hieroglyphs book. Hieroglyphs, wonder if you know which culture we're talking about. It's an ancient culture from very long ago.
All right. So these are storytelling. So she read through this book. So we actually added so many books here. Not only that, art creation here.
Each area has a different type of line and pattern in it. So I got this drawing from Miss Kaminsky from Don Bosco Technical
Okay, let me
School.
actually show one more art creation activity that might be better to see. These are all books. Yeah, this is how to draw things.
Create motion. And I don't know if you remember, we did a sun rising in the sky and then. How do you get an idea for something that can move? The circle I used last.
Okay, so past a couple of months, we created a lot of videos like that. And then after that, we encourage students submit their work. So you will see that some video underneath, we actually edit our students' work there. Okay, So mainly there are two kinds of video, digital storytelling and art activity, and then our students work. So let me actually close this out. Let me go back that. So those are our actually goals. We want to actually read the books. We want to share art activities. At the same time, we want to make sure we provide culturally responsive digital storytelling. And also, since everybody is isolated, we want to facilitate mental health via social connection, and also for our family and for our students as well. Now, can I go to next slide? And as I mentioned it before, we want to make sure we really address our population. In the Paterson School District, we see mainly there are a lot of types of people, but African American and Latino, and also we have other populations. So these are right now in our videos, we see these kinds of book at this moment. However, at this moment, we are working on creating video in Spanish and Bengali as well, because in Don Bosco School, we have a pretty high populations, Bengali students populations. And these are, for example, that I actually got this from blog, students have submitted their work. All right. So besides that our blog, we have 8 years art integrations lesson plan here. Okay, so we try to document our lesson in pretty in detail so that teacher can follow what we did. So I highly recommend actually visit this blog, and you can also navigate this website through by ear. Okay, we started from, what year was that? 2013. So you will see a lot of a lesson plan. All right. I also want to share Smithsonian Learning Lab for those who never utilized this lab. Please do so. This is a fantastic website. What it does is that it's a free, first of all, and a very interactive platform. And then you can access a lot of artwork that are available in Smithsonian, this museum. At the same time, you can create your own. That's the beauty of it nowadays. You can search for it. At the same time, you can create your own very easily. For example, let me actually share this learning lab. One of the teacher in New Jersey, she created this, right? So what it does is that you click on that, right? And the lesson is here. You can edit text. Oops. How can I go back to next previous? You can also add a rubric. You can also add a hotspot. You can also add a quiz if you want to. So they call this collection. Let me just type that. Collection includes more than a lesson plan. You can add assessment. You can also add resources. You can add all kinds of things. You can think of all these images are available in this museum. You can also just search for it. So say any kind of lesson you're interested in. Since I teach science, let me actually teach science. And then you'll see a lot of science lesson. We call this a collection again, right? That involves arts. Let me click on that. Not only that, I can create my own collections. You have to just open your own account, free account. And this video clip shows step by step how to create the collections. So I edited video here. And I
All
also
right, hello and welcome everybody to How to Discover, Create, and Share
oh, sorry,
on the
there's a video.
Smithsonian Learning Lab. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. My name is Tess Porter, and I'm a digital content
Can I go
producer
back?
and educator at the Smithsonian Center for Learning and Digital Access, which is the office behind the Smithsonian Learning Lab.
Sorry about
I'm
that.
broadcasting from my home today in Washington, D.C. I'm joined in the chat today by my colleague Ashley Naranjo, who is our manager.
All right, and I need to share this again. Can you guys see my slide again? All right, so now let me just share several virtual museum field trip. If you have not used this museum site, please do so. I try to add various types of museum field trip, not only from the United States, also from the outside United States, such as South Korea and Brazil and Netherlands, and also London. So please feel free to utilize this. This is a fantastic way to, if you want to help your students enhance their cultural awareness, understanding, and also you can observe, analyze, and historical landmark, and also you can really help your students deepen their content knowledge. So let me actually click on one link for it as an example. So which link do you want to go? I actually visited several, which was wonderful. London. Do you want to go London? Hmm. What do you guys see there from your side?
We see the link that you clicked on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I just, all right. So when you go to any museum, so this is a South Korea. So if you click to yellow, this guy here, okay. So you can actually go through, where can I click on that? Okay, let's go here. Do you see slide or website?
Slide.
Okay, it just like it's gone, Or like this one, same thing. You can click on each room. I can move along. So all of the museum actually I listed there, you will able to see like that. Okay, so now I want to share other types of digital tool. There's a simple drawing tool. So if I can click on that, this is simply drawing tool. I mean, this kind of tool is available, and I see several, something like this. And another tool I want to share. Bunsy. Let me just click one, and then other thing is, I'll just explain what that is. All right, so as you see here, and the bottom line is the same. It's like a Smithsonian Museum. You can search for it. You can search for whatever you want, and you can edit it. or you can create your own thing. So let's say I'm interested in social studies, right? So do you see view? What that means is you cannot edit it. You just view that. And somebody made it like interactive multimedia poster or content. So you can click on it, you can hear, or you can see the mute, any kind of movie clip. So let's say I want to go here, create this, right? Then it'll ask you, do you want to get this or edit it? All right, I want to edit. Then you can also create your own thing, right? So you can add a video clip, or you can add a text, or you can add a sound. That's what we call this interactive multimedia content. And the next one is about Go Noodle. Okay, what it does is that Dr. Fuentes just mentioned about that. We, students tend to just sit all the time, right, in front of the computers. So we want to engage children with a movement, a mindfulness video created by children. So if we click on here, let's see, same thing. Just open your account. I have a hard time logging into today. You can see by category, say I want to do math, right? You'll see a lot of video clips that are created by children, right? But you also notice that a lot of video emphasize the movement.
Lines and angles. Got to introduce it for angles more than 90, then we call that thing obtuse. A straight angle, it's looking super flat. It's 180 degrees. Come on and stretch it out like that. A reflex angle greater than 180. Here's the plan.
Also, you can create your own. So most likely you can use this for children in grades K-5. And you'll see so many other tools. I actually include every single thing here. Okay, I mean, this one is not what I made. Actually, one of my colleagues actually shared this. And then besides the tool, also I added a lot of resources. You will find a lot of other tools and resources as well. All right, so now let me just share some science related tool. Let's say I am not interested in really using digital tool itself, rather I want my students download something and print this out, right? And you can also have a hands-on activity. So let me actually go first link. How much time do I have?
It is,
Yeah, let me actually show only one link.
it's 8:07, so we have a few
Yeah,
minutes.
so many. So you will see a lot of short activity, right? And a PDF. So it's not like a digital activity. You just actually click on that and then PDF file is available and students can follow along. However, all activities are already planned for you, right? And this is all about chemistry, but they try to teach chemistry through hands-on activity that involve everyday objects, such as with gums and water and soap. So otherwise, chemistry tend to be boring or too abstract for children. Another one is My Sky Tonight. So this is for younger children, preschoolers. Oh, I forgot the important thing also before. Very similar, you'll see guide, also you'll see activity video, or any kinds of handout that you can use with your students. Right. Now, NSF also for printable worksheet for you. So let me click on that. I have one more actually resource that I can share. How much time do I have? Use all types of resources. Art the moon viewer, geography and globe, all kinds of things. Okay. Gizmo, so this is my favorite. They offer interactive simulations pertaining to math and science. So for example, let's say I wanna have experiment, right? To teach about density. Then you can see, let me go here, simulations. How many of you teach like about density of science? Here. No one? Right, so let me actually type here the density formula I have to do. Mass divided by volume, okay? Do you think this will sync? Okay. Test it out, is 11 gram. Now let's see volume, 9. And then we kind of now, hypothesize, do you think it's gonna float or sink? What do you think? I wanna hear from you, what do you think? Is it gonna float or sink?
You can all unmute yourselves if you would like. We're getting towards wrapping up, so we'll open it up for questions
Okay.
soon anyway. So you folks can unmute and start your video if you'd like to respond.
And this one is also. Let me just one more. The last one. Let me actually do one more thing that may float. Okay. So I just test this out. However, if you keep doing this, students will kind of find a rule, discover a phenomenon. Why some object will float, why some object gonna sink. There's a reason for that. If the density is less than 1, is gonna float. If that's actually higher than 1, greater than 1, it's gonna sink. So without telling them, they can discover a phenomenon by using this kind of simulations. That's the beauty of using simulations. All right. And also lastly, what you could do is you can create your own tool. So my colleague, Triada Samara, she actually create by using Padlet her own lesson. So she edited all kinds of resources she may want to use pertain to science and art. So actually, she followed this, one by one, actually conducted a lesson. So if nothing works for you, what you could do is by using Padlet, you can kind of curate, right? And create your own. All right, so before I end my session, I just want to share one conference with you. November 13th, right, Friday, from 8:30 to 3 p.m. So we're gonna have online conference. Do you see a topic? Topic is about effective online teaching strategies and tools. So we showed a little bit today. However, we offer 16 workshops here, so many workshops. And we also invited a keynote speaker from Indiana University. And you'll also receive a certificate with a 6.5 PT hours. So links is here. So I wanna see some of you on Friday November 13th. And I'm gonna end my session here. However, my email is here, anh2@wpunj.edu. And I wanna end my class by actually saying this quote: tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I will learn. So make sure they really employ this kind of hands-on activity in your virtual classrooms. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to all of our presenters, really useful resources and tips and pointers. So we really appreciate it. I know we're coming up on 8:15 in just a moment, but if anyone has any final